Hey, it's Kent Jones with Jones and Associates PC in Cleveland, Tennessee. We cover Hamilton County, Bradley County, McMinn County, Polk County, Marion County, and occasionally on an as-needed basis we'll go outside these areas. I wanted to talk to you today about purchasing residential properties for investment, i.e. to lease them out for profit. There are a lot of things that need to be done before you get into that type of business. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about our background before we get into that discussion. When I started out after law school in 1991, I was in-house and did contracts with Fortune 500 companies. Contracts are extremely important in this type of business because as you go through the process, you're going to be entering into a number of them. From 1999 to 2012, I did purely insurance and workers' comp defense, which meant that I was heavily engaged in litigation, trying more cases than I can remember, and appealing several dozen cases. And presently, I have one on appeal with the Court of Appeals of Tennessee and one on appeal with the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. I was involved in law firm management for 13 years and still am to some extent for the last 7 years with my firm, Jones and Associates. Prior to that, I did real estate work on an as-needed basis. I handled a case against a homeowner's insurance company where there was an accident on the premises and there was a lawsuit for medical injuries against my client, and the lawsuit was considerable. There were considerable medical injuries. We ended up negotiating with the homeowners insurance company and resolved the matter in mediation. During the same time period, I did a Chapter 11, which is a business bankruptcy. I did the creditor's side of it. It lasted for like 2 years, which was a lot longer than I thought it would. But essentially, it was worth a lot of money. The debtors' attorneys, they had 3, I believe, in 2 different states, filed adversarial proceedings about usurious interest. We went out on that issue, settled. I drafted all the deeds that transferred property back to the creditors, and any other contracts and documents that were necessary in that particular transaction. I've also been involved in helping homeowners in situations where property was destroyed, and worked a little bit in the area of evictions. Most of my work in 2014-15 was in the collections area, and we represented on an appearance basis a number of property management companies. And essentially it was our job to go into court and take a judgment. If they weren't there, a default judgment. If they couldn't pay a judgment, or settle it with them if they were able to pay at the time. Collections is a multi-phase process. You first start out by appearing and talking to them. We're taking a judgment if they don't appear. And then there's an attachment process. And generally, it was my last experience that once we attached a bank account, the funds were dispersed to the court and sat there for about 30 days to give them another chance to object before they were transferred over to our clients. Some of the other cases I did, one was really interesting. It was a case where a young couple bought their first home, and they did the right thing, hired a property inspector to inspect it. They moved in, and 15 things that maybe not were obvious to them but should have been obvious to the property inspector went wrong, and there was a lawsuit against the seller, real estate agent. The seller and the real estate agent were the same, and a lawsuit against the property inspector in that case was settled. We've drafted numerous wills, trusts, quitclaim deeds, warranty deeds, been involved in closings, quiet title actions, several of those, and business-to-business litigation. I represented a business that had been injured by another business, and that particular case took quite a while as well. It ended up in both federal and state court, and due to the insurance company's stance on coverage and the underlying case itself. When you start out and you decide that you want to invest in residential real estate in Tennessee, there's kind of a sequence of things you need to do. I would suggest the first thing you do is get hold of an attorney who deals with that type of thing and kind of work out a game plan. Secondly, whether you're in state or out of state, I would form a Tennessee corporation. These days, limited liability corporations are very popular because, as I've been told by accountants, they have significant tax advantages. One of those being that you avoid the or pay less on the franchise and excise tax, which can be extensive. It costs more to file for a limited liability corporation than a regular one, and you may have to file more documents during the year, but the trend is that's what people are doing these days. Whether you're in state or out of state, you'll want to designate a person with a particular physical address to be the resident agent of service process in case you're sued. You can form a corporation in different states, but I recommend if you're doing it in Tennessee to form here. That way the first contact that they're going to get is probably the attorney if you're the registered agent, and it'll be handled smoothly from there. The other thing that you're going to want to do after you set up the corporation is start looking at properties. If you know the property well and the history of the property well, which is often the case, then you have a lot less worries because you're very familiar with it. If you don't, then it's extremely critical to get a property inspector that is well respected to do a report for you on the property. It's obviously much easier to acquire a property that's already rented out than to have to acquire a vacant property and to go out and find renters and put them in that property. The next step would be to choose a property manager. If you're going to be acquiring a number of properties, if you can, I would recommend getting one property manager on contract. That way you get to know them, they'll get to know you, and you don't have to deal with multiple personalities, and they probably have access to resources that you need, like the property inspector and repair people who will be necessary when you have to have repairs done to the rental properties. So you've done that, and then the next step is the rental contract. When you're pulling somebody from the outside into a property to live there and pay you rent on a monthly basis, most of those contracts that I've seen are done on a yearly basis, and then after that it kind of goes month to month. You want to collect as much information as possible up front in the application, so that you'll have it, hopefully, if you end up in the collections process. Those types of things can include bank accounts and numbers. They can include vehicles, VIN numbers that are going to be at the property. They can include, where you work and the address of your employer. Obviously, those things may or may not change, and if they do change by the time you get to collections and eviction, you're probably going to have to hire a private detective to do some investigation. There are costs for detainer warrants, attachment, and writ of possession. They vary from county to county, mostly similar, and you can look them up on the websites for fees in the county that you're going to be located in. And then I guess I'm thinking the last thing that you need to do is set up a P.O. box close to your location, because you want all checks, money orders, or forms of payment to come directly to you first, and then you make the decision as to how to disperse, as far as property management, repair, legal fees, and all those type of things. If you have any questions about this process, feel free to give us a call. I'm available at 423-424-6208. My email is joneslaw08@gmail.com. Bradley Wilson's available at 423-458-2479. And his email is brad@bradleywilsonlaw.com. I appreciate your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.